like I said, I'm Jason. I know most of you guys. Most of you guys also know Coach Austin Wheat. Austin's been with me for 5 years? Something like that. But I really enjoy working with Austin because I coached him, and he's really gotten to know how we operate as a company and how I operate as a person. But before we get into that, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I never really talk about myself because I hate it. But I grew up in Wisconsin and grew up in kind of an endurance family. My parents were runners, so I really got to witness firsthand, kind of that you put in what you get out of it in that sport. And yeah, just really got to witness how they weave endurance training into the lifestyle without compromising non-negotiables, which is something that I try to carry on now and try to implement into our athletes. Grew up playing soccer and through high school and university, and then once I realized I wasn't going to play in Europe, I was like, well, I guess I'm not that good. I guess I'll stick to running because I was a midfielder. That's all I did. And yeah, just fell in love with it, and that was probably 2004. And upon graduating undergrad, went on to grad school and quickly realized that law school was not for me. All I wanted to do was be outside and run and train. So I snuck out to Colorado Springs and just, immersed myself into a culture of endurance that really inspired me to compete. And so moved to Austin, Texas, and just, cut my teeth in the endurance landscape and eventually earned my elite license and had a very mediocre professional career. Along that pathway, though, I got to work with some pretty incredible coaches and athletes and decided to get my USAT coaching credentials and honestly help payroll, a triathlon career because, unless you're at the tippy top, it's really hard to make a living. So I spent my days in Texas working at a bike shop, bike fitting, coaching, and traveling and racing. So it's something I wouldn't change for the world. I think dropping out of a grad school was a big risk, but I'm still doing what I love, and I would encourage anybody to pursue that when you're that age. In 2012, founded Toro Performance and have been growing ever since. I founded with one mission, really to combine science, experience, and more than anything, community to help athletes thrive, because this is such a solitude and individual sport. It's important to have a community of fellow athletes and coaches that you can rely on, and that's something that I try to really instill in our core group of athletes. And fortunate to have connected with Nick when he moved here in 2019. I remember we sat down at Lux and started to brainstorm on how we could grow a community here. That's my background. Let's jump to the next one, Austin.
Cool. So as Jason touched on, started out as an athlete and, now in coaching. But I think as an athlete, it is oftentimes a little bit lost on us that, there is so much more to coaching beyond just knowledge and numbers. And really it's a lot more, maybe not, spice therapist or something like that, but there's so much more to manage with the totality of an athlete's full life cycle. So, I think it's really big on, creating that genuine connection with your athletes. And, that really comes from empathy and being able to put yourself in your athlete's shoes and understand what's going on in their life. Just having them be able to focus more on the process than the outcome. It's a huge piece of that. And, it's really important that you do have those open lines of communication so that you can kind of manage that along the way. It's so much more than just, writing a plan, but rather how do we make this entire picture come together. So, I think really the goal there is, just trying to instill all these principles and have the athlete really bought in and committed to the shared common goal that we have together, right?
I think the gold standard in coaching is to get that athlete buy-in. Like, we've all had dictator coaches, whether it's the gym teacher in grade school or just a dickhead coach. Like, we've all had one. And that's not how you evoke the best out of people. I know I've had some highly applauded world-class coaches. They were dicks. and it works for some people. That their mindset of throw a dozen eggs at the wall, and the ones that don't crack, well, they're going to be champions. And it works to some extent, but it doesn't really build a sustainable lifelong athlete. And that's what I love. I'm going to train until I can't move anymore, because I love the joy of movement and community that this sport brings more than, a finisher now. Like that, yes, that's great, but if I can evoke that genuine connection to sport out of athletes, that's how we get the buy-in, because you don't get that by being a dick. You just don't. Maybe for some people, but 90% of people, it's just not sustainable. So as Austin touched on, it's all about that shared responsibility, no blame culture. Somebody has a bad workout or a bad race, it's like the first thing we do is debrief objectively and try to take that 10,000 foot view and figure out, okay, where are some of our missteps? And I'm sure Deanna's going to touch on this too, but how we do that is through something I call motivation. I don't call it. I didn't coin it, but it's something I like to read on. It's motivational interviewing, asking the right questions that evoke just deep thought and reflection to build autonomy. And my role as a coach is just to listen. We've all had that coach who just talks. It's like, well, dude, like, this is my coaching console, like, not yours. Like, I want to hear for those cues of me, why you had that misstep, or what was going on in that athlete's life outside of training that may have,
affected the negative outcome. Because as you're all my athletes, I tell you all the time, our body doesn't care where the stress is coming from. Our body cannot compartmentalize stress. So let's say Steve has a 16-hour shift at the hospital, and the next day he has a 4x10. I tell him to go 4x10 all out on the bike. It's going to be a really tough workout, even if he's fresh, but he can text me. He knows it's going to be like, dude, I am freaking fried. There's no way I can do this 4x10. I can do it, but the next day is just going to be compromised. So I'm really fortunate and in a good position that our athletes know they can text our coaches, and this is not a commercial, but they know they can text us and say, hey, I've had a wild day. Like, I don't think this is going to be the best thing for me today. Or better yet, they just make that call and tell us after the fact, because they know our success isn't dictated by one incredible workout. Your Andrea's Kona performance isn't going to be dictated by one workout, good or bad. It's just not. So I think that our biggest role as a coach is to listen and tell, so that an athlete can maintain that level of confidence no matter what their training looks like on a rough week. Because it's just important to help our athletes maintain that objective viewpoint that you really can't see when you're in the thick of it.
Yeah, so the next thing we're going to touch on is, just what really makes a great coach and athlete team. So, we have the information up here, but, I kind of touched on it before. Empathy is a really big piece of this. From both sides of it, really. From a coach's perspective, being empathetic towards your athletes, you have a better understanding of what they might be going through and opening up those lines of communication, like the example Jason just shared, where, hey, I had a really crazy day, super stressed out, I just need to take the night off. And being able to understand that is a really, really big piece of that, and having the emotional intelligence to be able to recognize when somebody does need a more regenerative day, weekend, whatever it might be. But being able to, live out that kind of principle is what really builds trust between the coach and the athlete. And then, the clear communication piece, and, from a coaching perspective, it's a lot about asking the right questions. Jason shared a few examples of that in the last slide, but the clear lines of communication are so vital and so important to being able to manage an effective plan, an effective life cycle through it. I mean, between our relationship, we communicated just about every day, multiple times a day.
Yep.
And that you can shift workouts throughout a day, throughout a week. I think being able to zoom out and look at the big picture and not being so caught up in, what's going on in that particular day, but rather how do we reach this long-term goal, and being able to zoom out. And so, with that, and being able to have that holistic viewpoint, you can look at structuring out your week to be, a more intelligent way of laying things out, where, we have 5 days of good, hard pushing work, and then have 2 days where you get a little bit more of that regenerative effect. So you're actually absorbing that training, a couple times a week, and that just keeps on compounding week over week, month over month, and really accomplishing those long-term goals. And so, I think, with that, from coaching, it's really just not about just writing plans, right? It's about creating a psychological kind of safe space for your athletes, so that they can maintain that level of buy-in, that level of commitment, and continue to show up consistently and stack those days, stack those weeks and months, and get the effects that we all want and reach those goals.
Yeah, and just staying on that slide 1 second, it's not about, this is a really hard sport, and we don't, we're not being soft. Like, we will kick you in the nuts when you need to be, but there's no point in doing that when you're down, or when you have other stressors attacking you in the moment. And I think this last point is so important. Writing training plans is the easiest part of our job. And I use those weather emojis because it's like forecasting the weather. Well, maybe not in Phoenix, because it's pretty predictable, but in the Midwest, maybe. Like, we write training maybe 7 to 10 days a week max for that reason, because, gosh, you never know what can happen, and I think it's important to recognize that our athletes know that they can come to us, that they're not going to think they're bugging us and being like I got this niggle in my leg, or if Andrea tells me, hey, this is kind of hurting now, what do you think? Like, that's the magic. That's how a coach and athlete can really grow and get you to the start line healthy, because that's the most difficult thing in this crazy sport. We can have a team with Nick and Deanna and a massage therapist, but unless you're communicating, your investment is not super effective. So it's all about having a team in place and communicating, and working as one to get you to the start line, not only mentally fit, but physically fit as well. Next one. Yeah, kind of just playing off what we just touched on. I think the most important thing is just ensuring that coaches understand that athletes are people first, whether you're, a professional or just someone completing, and I don't say just to diminish it, but just someone completing their first 5K. Like, you're a person, a spouse, an employee, a mother, a father, first and foremost, and it's important for coaches to recognize that. And it just, kind of sound like a broken record, but I just say this to echo the sentiment, and that's how you're sustainable. I've been doing this since 2004 in some capacity and had my highs and lows, but I think the one thing that has kept me going is just the community of people that I choose to associate with, because it's all about maintaining that pendulum or that scale on the right, just the life and joy. Like, I'm not getting any faster as I age. Like, we're all only going to get slower, but I still have the same level of joy, or if not more, when I finish a group swim with some friends or some athletes, or a hard ride or an easy run, you name it. Like, it's all about growth, balance, and community.
So Jason and I, in talking about a lot of this, we thought it would be useful to, kind of look through really 3 major archetypes that we have of athletes. And so, we'll touch on each of those 3 and kind of like the demands that go into that, and then how we as coaches kind of think about those problems. And so we have, we have the young professional, experienced parent, and the retired late starter. And so, when we look at these athlete profiles, it really does help to have this almost like an archetype. Everybody's different, but it is useful to have kind of that high-level archetype. And so shaping training plans around that to a unique life, we can look at these major factors right here. So how many hours per week does somebody have? And even going down to, the day. So yeah, the training availability, athletic age. So how long have you been doing structured training? So, this could, we think about like high level pros, like we'll just go with the Norwegians. When they were, in their 20s, their athletic age was, 20 years. They've been doing it since they were kids. So that plays a huge factor in how you respond to it. Kind of like what Nick was talking about. If you haven't been lifting heavy for a long time, there's just going to be that kind of beginner's gains that you might have. And so, yeah, just your body will respond differently based off of how long that you've been doing structured training. And then, very important as well is your actual chronological age plays a bit of a factor in like how much you can handle, what your body might respond to, what's going on with your body as you stack the years go on. And then we can also look at life stressors like work, family, lifestyle. And it is a holistic, a continuum. Stress is a continuum. So, all of these play like a really, really important factor in the way that you are going to respond, and how flexible training might need to be. And then, the load response, and all of this really comes together, and in a unique way, but the goal always being high performance at the same events. And so now we'll just jump into these athlete profiles.
It'd be really cool if Strava, you could display your athletic age on there too, instead of just age. Because then people would be far less insecure. Just anecdotally, an athlete who's been running cross country since they were 15 is likely going to need far less mileage to achieve the same stimulus as someone who's been running for 6 months or even 6 years, right? It's an important thing to recognize when we're constantly comparing our own training to someone else's on Strava. You'd be like, gosh, Nick swims twice a week and he swims 25 minutes for a 70.3. It's like, how many millions of yards does Nick have in his body, right? It's all relative. This is like a young Austin Wheat when we first met. The young professional.
Exactly.
So this particular athlete, very demanding job. Maybe they're in grad school, can commit to 10 to 12 hours a week. Athletic age is 2 years. But you can see how the stressors of a demanding corporate job, a lot of travel, maybe some alcohol intake, maybe some poor food choices and limited sleep can affect training. So as coaches, our approach would be to be really time efficient. If they're not an early person, I'd like to kind of shift that athlete to try to slowly, I'm looking at you, Anthony, get up early and start the day with a session just to set the tone for the day, and then eventually perhaps give us more time to hit that second session in the day. Really hit the threshold. Because of their chronological age, they can likely handle a little bit more in terms of intensity. And that threshold work on the bike certainly cascades into the run as well. And it can be a little bit more modular in terms of the training, so probably a little bit less dynamic in terms of really having me to check in with the athlete constantly, be like, hey man, how are you feeling? I know he's going to feel good. He's 28. Like, come on. And just slowly building up that gradual durability, working with a strength coach to ensure that he's doing all the right movements to prevent injury. Any questions on that one? Cool.
Is this athlete hard to work with?
Pain in the ass. Most men are.
Yeah.
My ladies are amazing.
Yeah.
They listen.
I want to say there's like studies on like women are much more coachable. Anyway, now we're getting into the experienced parent. So, as we can see here, these are, people who are, kind of Jason's age. Yeah, I think maybe this is a model after you. Athletic age, 10 plus years. I mean, he said he's been in some capacity doing endurance sports, maybe your whole life, but doing this more specifically since 2004. So, we can do the math there, but more hours in the week to train, 15 to 18 hours. Marriage, 2 kids, stable but busy career. A lot of family time, a lot of demands to be had there. I can't speak so much to that in my own life yet, but family comes first. So yeah, that definitely can eat into a lot of availability and just the stressors that come along with family life. And so how we would approach this, really focusing on that big aerobic foundation, and then using more of a polarized strategy with the intensity. So a lot of easy work and then some high intensity, interval type work, where we have these big key long sessions on the weekends. And so that's really like a big breakthrough, the training Bible, we call it breakthrough workouts. And so it's these big workouts where you get a lot of stimulus and a lot of good stress on the body. And so working this around the family schedule, usually during the week, it's going to be, a lot of like getting the kids out the door, getting them to school, when do we have to pick them up, extracurriculars after work. And so these weekends are typically going to be, a better time to spend 4 or 5 hours on the bike or be out running for a couple hours. So, but yeah, like I said, with the family schedule and family time, you really need to work around that with sleep and recovery. That's such a big piece, especially as you do age, like for recovery is and sleep, or becoming a premium, I guess. And so then working with people like Nick and having the strength and mobility to really build that resilience and keep the body healthy with those aging tissues, so to speak.
Aging tissues.
I think one thing, you can hit the next one, Austin. One thing that's important to recognize is just the generational gaps here. Everybody has a different style of communication. Like the young professional, they may ping me nonstop. The 40-year-old has a different style of communicating. Like that might be the type of athlete where I need to text them and be like, hey man, you good? Or, they just want to put their head down and grind. Or if they have a poor training session, they just go silent. That's where, we have to put on our, non-coaching cap and try to put themselves in our shoes and really play with that emotional intelligence. Not that other coaches don't, but I feel like that's kind of what puts us up above a lot of other coaches in the space, is just understanding like there's far more to endurance training than like spitting it out on Training Peaks. Like, okay, why is this dude ghosting me? Why has his Training Peaks been read for 3 days? Like, obviously they're committed, they're paying us, the sport attracts A+ people. So it's important to recognize like different communication styles based on different generations. Like, yeah, it's wild. Like the different demos that we deal with, and Austin and I, we talk almost daily on the different styles of communication. And that brings us to someone who may over communicate. the retired late starter, approaching 60, relatively new to the game, 2 or 3 years, but you can see they have a ton of time to train. And Nick and I work with an athlete who really fits this demo, and man, they're almost beyond committed, to the point where sometimes we need to tell that athlete to relax, like it's okay, like we're going to be doing this a long time. One missed session isn't going to make or break you. So it's important to recognize that sure, they have fewer life demands, if you will, and they can train 20, 25, even 30 hours a week, but it's important to really put an emphasis on recovery and emphasize that high aerobic pace and put a ceiling of power or heart rate on most of their training. We call that an intensity cap, and really, as Nick touched on, that still focus on that minimum effective dose. And in this case, that minimum effective dose is on intensity. So yes, they can still train 20 to 25 hours a week, but it's going to be a pretty hard, ceiling of zone 2, and then sprinkling in the intensity with intelligence and just paying particular attention to that load response. Me really driving home those open-ended questions. Hey man, how did that feel? Okay, let's dive deeper. Send me a voice note, or I hit him with a voice note. Like, we need to dive deeper. Don't just tell me like felt good or felt like shit. Like, I need to know. And that's where the magic happens, as we like to say. So lower stress doubles, maybe 2 easy runs instead of one 2 easy 45-minute runs instead of 1 90-minute run. So just playing with those dynamics to see how that load response dictates how they feel. And then, yeah, making sure their nutrition is dialed, sleep is dialed, active recovery is dialed. So, yeah, they're training a lot, this particular type of athlete, but it's load management is key when you've got that much time to train, and more than anything, the desire to see improvements because you're still so new and green to the sport.
Yeah. So as we can kind of see here, this is just a high level layout, but the big thing to take away from this is we all have our unique stressors going on in our life, but we're training for same event, but different approaches to get people there. And so, yeah, I think it's just really important that durability is kind of the gold standard of of endurance sport, kind of the cornerstone of being able to go in and day out, train the way that you're supposed to, and stay healthy and reach those goals like we touched on, just that shared goal of high performance. Just a few different ways to get there, right? And that durability really lends itself to being able to lean into consistency over more importantly, going in and consistently doing the work that you're supposed to do, as opposed to trying to be a hero in a particular workout, going over and doing too much, which I'm guilty of. I do it all the time. Working harder isn't necessarily better, right? And so, yeah, I think looking at this, we can see that with that building that durability, we also have to look at the recovery side of things and being able to actually absorb the training and get the adaptations. We don't adapt and get better during training. It's during the recovery part of that, and so we kind of have to guide that through age and athletic history.
Perfect. Yeah, I think Austin touched on most of this stuff. We won't rehash it, but yeah, different ways to skin the proverbial cat. Is that politically correct to say anymore? Probably. Don't cancel me. But yeah, durability. I think Austin touched on, like, that's the end all be all, and it's basically speed when you need it. There's a lot of ways to do that. I won't get into the physiology of everything, but there's a lot of way to do it. But essentially, our goal as coaches is to develop that fatigue resistance and durability, which is essentially not slowing down, also known as speed when you need it. These Ironman races are getting faster and faster, but the winner is the athlete who slows down the least. And to do that, you need to have durability. Biggest takeaways. That MEF stands for minimum effective dosage. That's huge. Volume does not equate to performance, and intensity is not a substitute for volume. So it's a delicate dance of finding that right balance for each athlete based on their age and their response time more than their actual age. And yeah, biggest takeaway is high performance is possible through different pathways, different modalities. We can strength train in substitution for some of our sessions. We can cross train in substitution for other sessions. And the beautiful thing about triathlon is, yeah, it's a balance. Swim fitness is bike fitness, and bike fitness is run fitness. So yeah, more than anything, we hope you enjoy this kind of fresh approach on how we look at endurance training. And that's that. Any questions?
Do you have a preference to athletes that you work with?
A preference in terms of the type? Yeah, I think that it's a good question. One of the first things we do is obviously we kind of have an interview with potential athletes, and they're like, we don't say this to brag, but we turn athletes away all the time. Like, we're not for everybody. Some people want X, Y, or Z, and we're not that. It's someone who's of good character, integrity, and just works hard. That's all we want, and can commit to communicating. That's huge. What about you, Austin?
Me?
Yeah.
I think kind of what you touched on. Really, what I like to see in an athlete is somebody who is Well, I think a good indicator is somebody who's trying to kind of like fleece you for a budget. You know what I mean? Because if somebody's trying to cut corners there, I think that kind of goes to, it speaks a little bit about like their commitment to the process that we have, the value that we really provide, and I think that's like a solid starting point. Not that money's everything, but it's more like the parallel we can pull from that. But yeah, I really try to find somebody with like a high character, a high integrity, and somebody that wants to communicate effectively, and yeah, just really commit to the goal and actually doing the training the way it's supposed to be done.
And play the long game.
Yeah.
The big answer is like, I think what it should have said is just someone who's committed to playing the long game. Who we see 3 years from now. Okay, my race is in 16 weeks. Can I hire you for 16 weeks? Like, yeah. But like, we're going to see the biggest things 2 years from now, and that's hard for a lot of people to swallow.
Yeah.